Let's get to it. There are one of the main targets of your book are prognosticators who are excessively certain of themselves, right? People who are not just think something's going to happen, but absolutely certain that something's going to turn out. And there are two broad ways you can be certain about the future. You can be certain it's going to be full of doom, or certain that it's going to be brighter. Mm-hmm. And in your book, you do pull apart, or you do talk about both the eternal optimists and the eternal pessimists. Yeah. But I get the sense, though, that both temperamentally and intellectually, you're more of an optimist about the future than you are a pessimist. And I'll just sort of thought, it seems to me that it also comes out in your book, in that there's a certain imbalance, and that while you do sort of treat them both, the main targets of your scorn are pessimists.
Yes, that's right.
And I just wonder, do you think, first of all, or do you think you're probably more optimistic than you are pessimistic about the future? And also, if it is the case that pessimism, would you agree that the pessimistic, the certain pessimists, are they a greater threat to our political and moral outlook?
Well, given that I would suggest that undue optimism was a primary contributor to the crash of 2008, I would suggest to you that undue optimism and undue pessimism are equally dangerous. Now, as to whether I'm an optimist or a pessimist, do you know, I think actually by temperament I tend to be a pessimist, but I think I've learned by studying history to be an optimist in the sense that I've seen just so many pessimistic predictions fail. I've seen humanity get better. I've seen improvement, and I think it's a terrible mistake to deny that. That being said, it's a key feature of my book. I should actually back up the foundation of my book, because I could cite anecdotes, right? I could cite endless stories of experts who make predictions and the prediction failed, and we'd all have a good laugh. But if you're thinking skeptically, and I hope you are, because that's how I want to encourage that, you'd be saying, hey Gardner, you're cherry picking your examples. You know, what about the predictions that succeeded? You haven't actually proved that expert predictions are bad. And you'd be absolutely right to make that objection. Which is why the only way to really get a proper handle on the extent to which, and of course, if I go out then and pile up expert predictions that succeeded, that really doesn't prove anything either, because we still don't know the total number of predictions. We don't know how many of those predictions were the result of random chance, right? Because if you go and buy a lottery ticket, you might win. It doesn't mean you predicted the numbers. So it's actually becomes a very difficult job to figure out. If you take evidence seriously, it becomes a very difficult job to figure out how good experts are at predicting the future. So what you need to do is you need to construct an experiment, a very exhaustive experiment, which you get together lots of experts, and you give them lots and lots and lots and lots of questions, and they can make lots of predictions. And then you have to be extremely patient, wait for time to pass, so that you can see whether the predictions hit or not. Unfortunately, I couldn't possibly do this, but a professor named Philip Tetlock, a psychologist at the University of California, has done this. It is by far and away the most comprehensive analysis of expert judgment. He started in the late 1980s. He brought together almost 300 experts, economists, political scientists, journalists, people who were in the business of talking, giving their guidance about the future. And he asked them to predict almost everything you can imagine, all the usual stuff you see in the newspapers, inflation rates, economic growth, wars, elections, all that sort of thing. And in all, he ended up piling up 28,000 predictions from his experts. And he gave them different time frames, some were 1 year out, 5 years out, 10 years out. And then he waited for time to pass, and then so that he could judge whether the prediction happened or not. And the other thing is he designed the questions in such a way so that they were precise. There'd be no debate about whether it was actually accurate or not. And the result, by the way, there are still actually there's more data, because he did some very long-term predictions as well, and not enough time has passed to assess those. But the result of the predictions that he has assessed, when he crunched the numbers, he came to a very simple conclusion. The average expert is about as accurate as a flipped coin, or, as Tetlock put it, and this explains the chimpanzee, about as accurate as a dart-throwing chimpanzee. Which is to say they were about as accurate as you would expect if you were guessing randomly. What does that tell you? They have no predictive insight. None. Now, that's the point at which the cynic says, okay, let's walk away, right? Experts scoff. What do they know? You know, well, some people enjoy that. Well, experts actually know a lot. By definition, they know a lot. And the second key piece of information that came out of Tetlock's research was this. He said, okay, that's the average expert. You know, by definition, there are experts above, there are experts below, significantly above and significantly below. Believe it or not, think about that, significantly below. What that means is those experts were actually worse than random guessing. How impressive is that, right? Worse than random guessing, that's a skill. But there were other experts who were significantly above. They weren't great. They still weren't great by a long shot. The future really is fundamentally unpredictable, but they actually had significant predictive insight. So what was it that distinguished those with significant predictive insight from these completely delusional fools? If I may be blunt. It was, well, he went down and looked for correlations. Were they optimistic or pessimistic is the first one you would think of, right? No. Didn't make any difference, optimist, pessimist. Were they left-wing or right-wing? Right? Because there's so little accountability in the prediction business, but what accountability there is, it's usually left-wingers laughing at right-wing predictions that fail, or right-wingers laughing at left-wing predictions that fail. No, that didn't make any difference. Didn't make any difference in education, university affiliation, access to classified information, all the things you think might matter. There was only one thing that mattered, and that made the difference between the two types of experts. It was the style of thinking. The experts who were better than average, the experts had real predictive insight. They got their information from diverse sources. They didn't use one analytical tool. They had many ideas, many analytical tools. They were, and this is essential, comfortable with complexity and uncertainty. They would be more likely to say, maybe this is going to happen, but we can't be sure because there are countervailing factors, right? And they were also more likely to acknowledge mistakes. Frankly, to say, whoops, that was wrong, and to change their thinking accordingly. Now, the experts who were below average, the people who would have been beaten by that dart-throwing chimpanzee, they had one big idea, one big analytical tool. And because they were sure that analytical tool was right, well, their predictions were right. So these folks were actually more confident that they were right. And they valued simplicity, clarity, and conclusiveness. They knew what was going to happen. Don't give me your wishy-washy maybes. Tell me what's going to happen, okay? Now, what have I just described in that second category of expert? The media darlings, the media gurus, the superstars, the guys with the best-selling books, the guys who are on talking heads on television. They know what's going to happen. And guess what? When Tetlock further analyzed his data, what did he find? There was a clear inverse correlation. The more famous the expert was, the less accurate they were. How depressing is that? And why is that? It's very simple. The media like that type of expert, the type of expert who is most inaccurate, and they like that expert not because they're being perverse, right? I am the media. We're not perverse. We're not doing this because we're being bizarre. No. We're giving people what they want. The media like that type of expert because people like that type of expert. Because they give you what you psychologically crave. They give you certainty. They don't give you on the one hand, on the other hand. They give you certainty. It's a terrible mistake. We shouldn't fall for it, but it's psychologically understandable.